Welcome back to part 2 of the SME Marketeers How-To Guide to SEO. In our first video, we looked at what SEO is and why it's important, and we began to outline why your keyword research is so fundamental to your SEO. In this session, we look at how to use this keyword research to your best advantage in both your meta information and your on-page content. For a more in-depth explanation, please download our on-page guide and worksheet. You'll now join our presentation to the Somerset Marketing Hub, where we gave an introduction to SEO for its members.
If I type in, so thank you Rod for being my star here. If I type in funeral services in Wales, you can see on the right hand side, this is what Rod his site is returning. So I've typed in funeral services Wales and it's recognised that the title, the meta title as it calls it for that page, exactly matches what my keyword search is. So that gives it a tick on Google. Oh, this looks very similar. Rod's URL, Wales Funeral Services, also used my key search term. Brilliant. Okay, Google takes another tick. And then it looks at the meta description. Now, whilst Google doesn't actually read the meta description, humans do. And humans will, if they click on your returned result from Google as a result of seeing your title and description, Google does track click-throughs, so the more people that click on it, so the more enticing your meta description is for a human reader, the more clicks you get, the more Google ticks another box of, okay, that's the third tick, someone's liking this. So those are the kind of background things that you should have on your site. It is hidden, but this is what Google will return. If you want, probably, I don't know if it's too technical, but if you want to see if that's on your site, go onto your site page, right click on your mouse and go to view source, and then do a Control F find and type in meta, and you'll see if they've got a title description, and you'll also see something called OG, which is for whether when you share that page. So if you share that page to Facebook, LinkedIn, it should carry through that same meta description and title and a picture, so that when you share it, it looks just as good when you share it on Facebook as when you share it, or when it's seen or shared anywhere else. So it still has the same key information.
So this is one of the 101s. Your site must have these things on them to really help it. Otherwise, yeah, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball before you've even started.
Yeah.
So if somebody's, how often does Google crawl each website? If you've not done if anybody on here has not done anything for 6 months and Google no longer notices it, are they able to go in and get these things right and then stand a chance of being noticed?
Yeah, so the other things you'll have on your website hopefully would be, and they're free, is Google Analytics and Google Search Console. So what you can do is you link your site to Google Search Console. I can go and send all the details of how to do this. When you make a change to your site, so say you put a new page up, you resubmit your site through the Google Search Console to Google, and it tells the spiders to come back and look for you. So if you don't do that, it probably crawls you every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know. But if you have something new, you say, please crawl me again. And again, you can't, don't force it to call you too often, because otherwise Google gets annoyed and then it stops you. But it will come back and check your page. And sometimes again, the Google Search Console will show you that it's crawled your pages, it knows there are pages there, but it hasn't yet come back to read them and rank them, but it has registered them. And again, it will send the bots back when they have time, which I think is really cute, because they're so busy. When they're busy, they'll come back and have a look. And then it will rank what's there. So, but it's a really interesting, the other really key point about Google Search Console is it tells you what actual keywords people searched on. So, and when it returns you. So it will if you go into the main dashboard, there's a picture called point called queries, and it will tell you exactly what someone typed to get you to show up. So you have a best guess at your keywords. But if you find that lots of people are typing it in a slightly different way, you might create a new page or tweak the elements on your page to make sure that you get a higher ranking So that's probably a whole session on its own, but it's very easy and really useful information, because also having Google search is if there's any error on your site, it sends you an alert. Google actually tells you, oh, you're not ranking because such and such, or this page is invalid, or this page has an error, please fix it. So it's actually telling you what mistakes are being made so that you can fix them. So it's really useful. So the other thing I just quickly touched on is the body content. So once you've worked out all your keywords and you've seen everything, actually on the page, the copy that you use, Google is looking for certain signals. So again, we've seen that the off page, the meta description and title uses your keywords. It then looks for all the content on your site. So the headings, it should only have one major heading. So if this is a bit like a report, so each page should have one major heading that says what it's about, and ideally that should use your keywords, because you should have picked them for that purpose. Should all tie in naturally. It's not that you're trying to deliberately hide things. You're actually using that because that's what your company is about. And then as you go down in priority, you have an H2 and H3 and H4. So it's a bit like a report. So you have the report heading as H1, the individual sections H2, and then if you've got subsections within your individual report sections, that's H3, and so on. The other thing, word count is important. More than 200 words on a page at least. So anything under 200, Google regards as spammy. So like all those Ray-Ban ads that came up, it just thinks you're you're not a trustworthy site, so you get low ranking. The average is to rank on page 1 is around 1,000. But don't despair, because actually it also counts what it calls alt tags. So if you have got lots of images on your site, if you tag those images and you explain what they are, and again, sort of hopefully using your keywords when you're explaining them, the original purpose for alt tags is for a blind person using your site through a reader to explain what they're seeing. But it also has a secondary purpose that Google reads it too, because it's a bot, and therefore it helps you to rank a bit further. And the last thing is that every page, the more internal linking you can do throughout your site, the better. So Google doesn't see a whole website as an entirety. It sees every page as a separate entity. So the more links you have, the more it registers and what it passes at what it calls Google juice around the site. So if you have one page that's ranking really, really well, you want to link to your other pages to send the bots around your site too, and also to share what it calls the Google juice into the other pages. So again, a bit like we said earlier about every link to your site is a vote. So every link to your page is a vote for that page. So if you've got a high ranking page that links to another one, it's another vote for the page.
The word down there, don't keyword stuff. What people used to do a lot is just put a load of keywords. They think I want to rank for these words, and they would just put it on. Your site also has to read like a human reads it, because Google wants people to go to page sites that read well. So that's a real key, key point.
Yeah. So there are, again, it brought out what people used to do is put their web page up, and then say you had a white background, they would then put the keyword in 15 or 20 times on a line in white. You just see a space and you wouldn't know what the space was, and they were trying to trick Google into thinking they'd mentioned it a lot. And so now Google then brought out an algorithm to say, right, if it's keyword stuffing, or if I feel that you've overused your keyword and you're
penalize you.
Yeah, it will penalize you and knock you down the ranking. So every time people think they've worked out how to get around the algorithm, Google gets smarter and smarter and smarter. And the last major algorithm it did, it was teaching their bots to understand language and semantics and understand the relationship between language and words. So it's getting so smart. So even if you find that your keyword is, so let's take funeral services, you don't have to put funeral services every opportunity. Funeral director, related things will also count. So, and actually they prefer you to use the variety of language. So it's learning those
more human.
Yeah, it is learning those connections.
On the titles, the headings and the titles, when I'm aware of whether it's H1 or sometimes I just look at the visual effect. So sometimes I'll just bold some words. So you're saying it's better to use to make sure it's a H1 or an H2. I've used that sometimes, but I thought, well, the H2 looks too big, so I'll skip to H3 because it fits the page. Is that?
Yeah.
Is
No,
that
that's
go-
telling. That's telling Google that, so the priority, so an H3 is a sub, you know, it's seeing H1, and there should only be one H1 for every page, and it sees that as the main title. So if your main title, you've used H3, it doesn't see that as the priority on that page. So it's going to look for the H1.
That's really useful. Go back to the drawing board, I think.
I know if you're in Wix, I don't know because I don't use WordPress, but I know in Wix it gives you, it's interesting, it gives you settings 1 to heading 1 to heading 6. Heading 6 always seems to be the really bold one, which is weird because it should be another really large one, but actually heading 1, and you can actually force it to change the settings. So I go into H1 and say, no, I want H1 to be size 50 and this, and H6 to be small. The other thing that I've seen on the site I was looking at the day is that they used, a bit like you just said, Paul, they picked out to have the phone number large, they used an H1 heading. And I said, you've now got that competing against what your actual heading is. And because it's in the footer, every page now has a duplicate H1 title. And so Google is looking at them both. And actually your phone number, whilst that's great,
It's getting confused.
you don't need to, unless you want to rank on your phone number for some reason. You know, and I think the only reason that people would type in a phone number is because they're looking to see who called me so they can block it. So I don't think it's an H1.
We hope you enjoyed the introduction to SEO on the Somerset Marketing Hub. If you want to join the hub, it's free, and you simply go to Somerset Marketing Hub and sign up. For the next phase of our SEO how-to guide, we're going to be looking at what you need to do for local search, and that's really important if your business is targeting local people and the local community.